Hey guys. Hey guys. Today, today, alright, here's the deal. Alright, today I'd like to present you with a fact pattern. Alright, so here's the fact pattern. Number one, all of us pay individual income tax. Now, we all pay individual income tax to the Internal Revenue Service. The Internal Revenue Service serves the Treasury. Okay? Now, I'm going to connect a couple dots here. So the Treasury is a government, it is part of the government, right? The Federal Reserve, on the other hand, is a private bank which the federal government gave power to. So the Federal Reserve was given the power to print money and then lend it to the federal government. And who gave them that power? The federal government. Okay, so I've connected those dots, right? So the Treasury essentially borrows money from the Federal Reserve. Now, our tax dollars go to the Treasury through the IRS. Now, the one important fact that ties all of this together is the fact that the vast majority of income tax, federal income tax, goes to pay interest on the money lent from the Federal Reserve, by the Federal Reserve, to the federal government / Treasury. Okay. Now I'm going to connect the dots further. So we now know the relationship between the Federal Reserve and the Treasury. We know the relationship between the Federal Reserve and the federal government. Now let's talk about who has ownership interest in this private bank, which is called the Federal Reserve. It is often mistaken for a government entity because it says federal. Anyways, who has profit interest? So we know that the Rockefellers have profit interest in the Federal Reserve, which means that they have ownership in it, and they get returns in the form of the interest paid to the Federal Reserve by the federal government. Now, the Rockefeller family has been at the forefront of a vast, a wide variety of organizations, I should say, and basically one of the organizations that the Rockefeller family is they founded this. So the Rockefellers founded the American Medical Association, AMA, and AMA is one of the main proponents of the coronavirus response that's been pushed, which includes shutting down the economy, forcibly preventing people from running their businesses, while at the meantime expecting them to continue paying property tax, etc. And the AMA is pushing this, just like the CDC and the WHO, World Health Organization. So now, what is the economic effect of these measures? Well, basically the economic effect is a transfer of wealth. That should be obvious. So when the vast majority of small business owners are debt financed, they all, a lot of them have to go to a bank to get financing to start their business, whether it's buying a building or a working capital loan, whatever it may be. So when you shut down the small businesses, what happens is they have no choice but to forfeit the business's assets to the bank, because the bank holds a lien on the collateral of that, for that loan. So now the bank has collected those assets, right, at a discount of what it really cost them. And then, statistically, the majority of these loans are with the large banks, the multinational, the largest banks there are, Bank of America, etc. So now you have, and then if you look at the ownership of Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, which is part of Bank of America, etc. I mean, it's gonna lead up to the same guys who ultimately have an ownership interest in the Federal Reserve. So you're witnessing the largest transfer of wealth up to the 1%, and the largest destruction of the middle class that this country's probably ever seen. I mean, if we're talking about volume, the Great Depression was sort of a different situation. Okay, 2008, that was a pretty big transfer of wealth with the bailouts. Now this time, we have the PPP loans being taken by the largest companies, and the small businesses are being left out and not getting as much as they probably should if you look at who's in trouble and who's not. Anyways, so there's the transfer of wealth, and it all ties in because the AMA, American Medical Association, is one of the main backers of these measures which are destroying the economy. So I don't know how anyone can't see a connection there. I mean, it seems pretty obvious. Not to mention, you can look at health. You can look at all the health reasons you want about masks. You can look into that and realize that wearing a mask is not actually. Those masks aren't designed for just to be wearing all the time. It's designed for a surgeon to wear when they're operating, so that they don't get their spit. They don't spit into their patient, basically. So, I mean, which would obviously be dangerous, but we're not talking about open wounds here. We're talking about just everyday interaction. So, look into that. And then also, if you wear a mask all the time, what it's doing is it's basically you're breathing back in the same germs that you were breathing out. So, I mean, it's really just going to continue to weaken your immune system. And on top of all of that, the mask is a flag. It's a badge. I mean, think about Nazi Germany, where the Jews had to wear stars, right, to identify them. Now we have initiatives coming out to start making people, have to be identified visibly on, based on whether they've been vaccinated or not. And then now we're getting into a whole thing about forced vaccination, and what's the legality in that. And the Supreme Court has actually ruled that the states can actually decide on that. The state legislatures can mandate vaccinations and use force to administer them. So currently, the precedent's been set by the Supreme Court that if a state governor, they'll probably accept executive orders as well, but if a state legislature puts a law into place for mandatory vaccinations, that's all there is to it, and appealing to the Supreme Court will not do anything because they've already set precedent, I think, at least once, if not twice, saying that they do have that power. So what I have to say to everyone is that, ultimately, there's no way to force vaccinate everyone in the entire country because there's just too many people. So what they're doing is they're relying on fear in order to get the people to come to them. You start taking things away slowly. Think back to Nazi Germany again. What did we learn in school? They started taking away rights from the Jews one by one, not all at once. So that's what they're doing here as well. So now, next thing there's curfews in a lot of states now. When was the last time there was a curfew in your state? That should be alarming, right? But under the guise of public health, a lot of people are falling for this, and I just want to say, guys, please just look into this. Just go to bitchute.com, bitchute.com, and just look up COVID-19 and just see what anybody on BitChute has to say. That's a platform that's not censored, like YouTube and Instagram, etc. So please just look into it. I'm urging everyone. It's not going to be easy to find this stuff out. At first, it's gonna make your heart beat. You're gonna probably get angry. And I just urge you to try to just look towards the goal of just getting as many people on board with saying, no, I don't accept this new normal. I don't accept these infringements, and I don't accept a mandatory vaccination because despite what the Supreme Court may have ruled, despite what the legislature says, that doesn't change my right as a human to my own freedom and my own well-being. So, guys, just share this if you can. Get the word out, and just do your best out there, guys. Thanks.